Welcome to The Women's Wisdom, our journey in emergency medicine podcast, a production of the Women in Emergency Medicine section of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. Join Doctors Molly Estes and Liz Calhoun as they are joined by prominent women in emergency medicine and other special guests.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Women's Wisdom podcast. My name is Molly Estes. I'm clinical faculty at Northwestern University.
Hi, my name is Liz Calhoun, and I am an attending emergency physician at Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital in Darby, Pennsylvania.
And today we're very excited to welcome to our podcast Dr. Megan Healy. Dr. Megan Healy, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be with the two of you. I'm Megan Healy. I am the program director of the emergency medicine residency program at Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia. And I have been here at Temple through my whole EM career, so residency and since then as faculty.
So just to start our conversation off a little bit, what's it been like being at the same place through all the different phases of your training? You must have like all the dirt on absolutely everything. We want stories.
Oh, sure. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's so interesting to reflect back and remember these moments that happened in different phases of my training. You know, the various places I've cried in the hospital and in the emergency department. Which happened early in training, later in training, later into attendinghood. And there's just such this sense of place and of home and of people that I care about and who have shaped me in my career. And those include faculty, residents, students I've interacted with, and of course the patients. So there's just so many memories. Every room has like that story, and I've seen myself grow and change in my time there too. So that's the interesting piece about, you know, being in the same place for a long time. And you watch some things change, but a lot remain the same, which is comforting, sometimes frustrating, but mostly there is a comfort to that and knowing a place really well and learning how to navigate it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you transitioned from general attending to APD to program director at Temple?
Sure. So as a junior faculty member, I really liked the didactics and the conference portion of the residency, more the overall organization than the individual lectures, but like putting all of the pieces together. So a position became open. They were looking for someone to kind of revamp parts of the curriculum, and you know, I put my hand up. I liked being at conference and still learning as a faculty member. I felt that was a really great thing to spend my time doing while I was still, you know, relatively junior in my clinical experience. So I spent a lot of time reformatting things, going to shorter format lectures, more hands-on activities, and just seeing how the residents appreciated those changes, and they could see the effort that was going in to, you know, improving the program and updating it to meet their needs. I really got to know the residents outside of the clinical space too, which is nice, and they, you know, get invested in your relationship with them. And so I just, you know, volunteered to take on that role, really enjoyed doing it, and, you know, transitioned. It was originally like on paper, and I had all of these spreadsheets. We've now gone much more digital. We're way more advanced now in like the organization of the entire curriculum. So then when an APD position became available, I threw my hat in the ring. It was something I really cared about and wanted to get involved with, like developing the resident skills. And I prided myself on being someone who gives them hard feedback when sometimes there had to be hard feedback given, and doing it in a way that showed that I cared about them. And I think that is something that the residents appreciated. And so I found myself in the APD role. I got to learn from Jay Berg, who was program director here for close to 18 years, a really like long tenured, universally loved PD who just like set such a great culture of support and caring for the residents, and is just a really humble person and who was a role model for me and a mentor for me in learning how to be a good APD. So, I spent 6 or 7 years in the APD role and kind of owned some of the individual tasks that came up over that time. I became the kind of go-to wellness person, or when trickier situations came up in terms of like feedback or residents needing support. And I like those kind of challenging cases. And so that I think ultimately led me to the program director role.
We interview a lot of people on this podcast who seem to find themselves in leadership positions, whether intentional or not. Your pathway actually sounds, though, incredibly intentional. How did you go about conceptualizing what it meant to be and look like and function as a leader in these different roles? Was there anything specific that you did along the way that better equipped you for being able to assume that position of responsibility?
Yeah, I am a little bit of like a leadership development nerd. Like some people hate
You're
it.
in good company. We're all nerds.
There's a lot of nerds here. I feel in the nerd love. Um, at least in my undergraduate medical education, we didn't have a lot of professional development, kind of leadership development. I think some schools have moved a bit more in that direction, but it was something that I found really helpful to me, especially as a junior faculty member. So I took advantage of a leadership development course they had here at my home institution, and then I kind of got hungry for what was offered in other forums. So the WiEMC has a great course for early career women faculty in particular. AAEM had a leadership development course that I participated in. And I think what's most helpful in those courses or opportunities that offered is the community building with other people who are experiencing similar challenges. So getting to connect with others, share common struggles, kind of borrow ideas from what's working for other people, to learn about how they navigated, institutional hierarchies and some of the structural issues that we see in medical schools and in hospital systems. I felt it was a very kind of efficient, valuable use of my time to build these relationships across my hospital. So the one that I did in-house here at Temple, getting to know people who were in my role in internal medicine and OBGYN, and realize how many of our challenges we shared in common and how we could collaborate together. So that really fueled me, and I got great advice from others. And then I felt that I was able to kind of pay some of that forward to folks that I was mentoring as well. And then really just skill building for, how do you get stakeholders engaged in a particular idea you have? How do you do the project management tasks of getting something done from like soup to nuts? How do you have conversations with different styles of bosses and kind of meet your goals in those? I thought all of those kind of skill building pieces were really helpful to me. So I'd recommend any version of like those leadership development courses. I think are very helpful.
And in addition to that, you've had some additional specialized training as well through Temple.
Yeah. So one other thing that I was drawn to do here at Temple was the master's program that was offered in health justice and bioethics. And I accidentally kind of fell into it. There was a faculty member I really admired who was in infectious disease, and she was talking about her experience taking the courses and how relevant she found it to her clinical practice, and how much kind of she could take the lessons and apply it to her teaching, her clinical work, her research that she was involved in. So I took a kind of unusual detour and completed this master's program that's offered with a bioethics focus, but it's a health equity lens for bioethics. And I was a bio major as an undergrad, so I did not have a lot of social sciences. And what I think I found most important about the learning was, hearing from sociologists, anthropologists, folks with backgrounds in policy and public health about their lens on what's happening in medicine and in emergency medicine in particular. I think, we're this space between the community and the hospital, and we see so many of the problems of our society that don't necessarily fall into the purely medical bucket. We see all the downstream impacts of the structural determinants of health. And the faculty who taught me in this program really gave me kind of new language and ideas for interrogating what I was seeing, and in particular, like the suffering of the patients that I care for in Philadelphia. Temple is the major safety net hospital in the largest poorest city without a public hospital system. And so there's a lot of suffering in the patients that we care for. And the bioethics program really helped me to think about it differently and think about interventions that we can do from the emergency department. We just think about like root causes. And I think it's a really important way to be able to stave off burnout in emergency medicine, because so much of the time when we don't have a good explanation, we go to this place of kind of a contentious relationship with the patient, or like blaming the patient for these larger structural failings. And I think when you can very clearly point to where those systems issues are, it takes that off of the level of the individual patient. And it really helped me approach emergency medicine with more empathy. And I think patients get it when and can appreciate what they're going through. So yeah, that was a really important thing, meaningful thing that I was able to do as a faculty member. And I was in classes with like a lot of med students. So it was interesting to hear the views of like the kind of younger cohort and their perspectives too. So it was just interesting to be back in the student role as well. I like to learn and keep on learning. I think we all do in emergency medicine.
So that actually is a good segue into, I've got two follow-up questions for you about this experience. And this comes from, I'll be very honest right now. I've been contemplating getting my master's of health professions education for a few years now. It wasn't a part of my medical education fellowship, intentionally so. I chose to do a fellowship program that didn't have the master's as part of it. But I find myself keep running up against the, oh, but do I have time? Oh, but do I have money? Oh, but do I have the resources to dedicate towards this? And I just heard you wax eloquent about how beneficial it was in the long run. So how did you get yourself over that hump of this is something I need to do for myself? Because I feel like that particular thought process and reasoning applies to so many things in our lives, not even just advanced degrees in higher education, but to many other endeavors as well. How do you rationalize to yourself putting in the time and effort now when you know it's going to pay dividends for you in the long run?
Yeah, I think back, actually, it was at the AAM leadership development course. I remember Kevin Rogers standing up and talking about kind of like balancing and making decisions about where you want to spend your time. And he had this idea that you're putting on something that's significant and big, like other things have to come off. And I think we struggle so much with making those hard decisions because like our energy and resources are not limitless. And so what was most helpful to me was to like get a piece of paper and write down all of the things that were taking my time, and pick the things that were most key to like my values, what I cared about, what I wanted to be doing in the future. And it meant letting go of things that I wanted to hold on to that weren't really serving me anymore, but I was like so like interwoven with, it was like hard to extract from the things that I had done for a while. And I also realized like no one was really paying that much attention to like all of the things that I was holding at once. And like, it's a bit humbling too, that like kind of no one notices when you're gone from the thing. Like they, they will find, you feel like the world is going to crumble if you don't do this thing that you used to do. And, I found other people stepped into the role, or maybe there wasn't a need for that particular thing in that moment in time anymore. And I
I
think
do I do find, just to support this point, because it's so true, like it feels so disheartening to be like I'm not really needed, but when I'm on vacation and I'm actually good about setting an away message on my email and not checking my email and a few days go by and I'll just glance at it, it is amazing to me the number of emails that are quote unquote, emergent or urgent that need to
totally,
be handled, and they just magically get fixed by someone else. Like it's
yes,
true. We are not nearly as vitally important to many things like we would like to think that we are. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's a hard lesson. Like it doesn't feel good,
Doesn't
but
feel good. No,
I've
you're
like
like so
seen it. And yeah, like trusting that. And I think like as women in particular, we try to fill the gaps a lot, and there's a lot of gaps, and we can't always be like individually, like personally responsible for filling all of those gaps. And sometimes it's other people stepping up, sometimes it's things falling away. And so it comes back to thinking about what's most important for me kind of in my life right now that's going to allow me to contribute in a bigger way or in a more meaningful way in the long term. Because it's really not just about the individual level either. um, One of my APDs I like have worked with very closely um, for a bunch of years. We were APDs together. I remember this moment that we were in an elevator together, and he was like, that your like time and effort is like this precious resource. Like, be careful, like with that resource. And like, no one had ever said it to me like that before, and I still think about that like all the time. Um, and it was like just such a key moment in my career and in my life, and it was like a message I really needed to hear. Uh, so I felt like it was giving me the ability to like decide for myself a little bit more and be a little more protective of the resource that is like my time and my energy, and like not everybody gets it. Um, so that was helpful for me, and I'm grateful to him. And we still work really closely together. And it's good to have people that see things from a different view or have a different approach to like balance out all our like quirky idiosyncrasies. So I'd encourage people in teams to really do that. Like have a variety of approaches. You can't all like come from the same like kind of working style or point of view. Like I like being challenged and thinking about things from other points of view.
That is such an important point to make, and such an important thing to be said, that we are not told enough as women, because oftentimes we see ourselves as being perpetually behind in the race, whether it's to get into medical school, get into residency, to progress in our careers, to achieve that next rung on the academic ladder, which we're told we're always behind the 8 ball as. And you've just made a series of really good points as to why not only are we not, but we should stop seeing ourselves that way, as both a self-protective mechanism to our own self, our own values, our own careers, but also in terms of what's actually needed for advancement and that ability to say no to things.
Yeah. The like the whole arrival fallacy, like you'll make it. I had the same thing about the program director role. Like that's going to be the pinnacle. Like when I will feel this different sense when I achieve this thing that I've aimed for so long. And it's wonderful in very many ways. Like lots of new responsibilities, lots of new opportunities come with it, but it's hard. It's just another version of hard. And so I think we have to really challenge that idea of that arrival fallacy. Like when you make it, and we get trained in it, like all through medical school, all through residency, like it's so much in our like professionalization. And so what I had going back to the master's program was like this dedicated space to think about stuff like that. Like it gave me this like time in my schedule that was blocked off, like to think about some of these concepts that were shaping medical education, that were shaping the way I was practicing medicine, the clinical work, the systems all around me and my patients. And I think if I didn't have that dedicated space, I wouldn't have been able to like apply those lessons in ways that have helped me in my career, and I think have set me up for more longevity in doing emergency medicine, which is a really challenging specialty. Like
It's
beautiful in like so many ways, but it's you all know it's like not for the faint of heart. Like you're in it. This is a job for like champs. We do not have an easy job.
We definitely don't. It reminds me of the saying, don't let perfect become the enemy of great. Um,
Mm,
and there are so many different parallels there to where we need to enjoy the phase of life that we find ourselves in. I feel like we're trained from a very, very early age, like going back to elementary school even, and thinking, okay, well, middle school is going to be the thing, and then high school is going to be the thing, and then, oh, please don't let this be the thing. Maybe college will be the thing.
totally.
And we have all of these different phases of our lives that just fly by. And, for fear of sounding way too much like an old fuddy-duddy or something like that, blink and you'll miss it. And it's so important for us to hold both of those ideas in tandem. Okay, well, where am I going? Because I do have goals and I am driven. But also, how am I enjoying where I am right now? How am I learning? How am I living life? How am I experiencing and becoming the person that I want to be at that next stage? Because nothing magical happens overnight. We all know that, right? Like there's nothing magical that happens when you walk across the stage at med school graduation. There's nothing magical that happens on June 30th that suddenly makes you prepared for residency. Like there is no magic ever. There is no instant download. It is all just a continuous growing and developing process. And it's important to have enjoyment of life along the way.
For sure. Yeah, there's nothing like being in residency education and seeing people who come through over this 3-year span, like how quickly that goes, how much like they grow in such a short time. It's this constant reminder of that, and that many of us are in spaces for like a fleeting time. And I just come back to the relationships, like, that we form with the other people that we work with, the trainees that I get to see through the beginning of their career in emergency medicine. And those for me are the most like meaningful pieces of the job.
We, yet again, in true podcast fashion, we have come up against our end time. If there was one more piece of wisdom that you wanted to leave with whoever might be listening right now, what would it be? Pick anything in the world, any topic, any application, one piece of wisdom.
I think something that I've been learning more recently that I've found very helpful is we are very good and we're very well trained to think things through from an analytical perspective. And we get trained out of listening to our bodies in medicine. And so we don't do a lot of like bottom up processing of like, what am I like feeling in my actual like gut, arms, legs, skin right now? And I think it's important for us to sometimes like find somewhere that's quiet. Maybe it's that closet with the juice to like feel what we're feeling, to allow us to like then move on to that like analytical part, that like executive functioning part of our brain. It's like so much in medicine, we just learn to like push down everything. Like you're hungry, you have to pee, you're thirsty, but like this needs to get done next. So we're get really good at like pushing down like what we're feeling physically in our bodies. And I've been trying to pay more attention to like what am I feeling right now? Because I think there's really important wisdom there, and that can help us like make some decisions if we follow those cues sometimes. Like sometimes we just need to go take a nap. or get outside. And so that's something I've been trying to get better at. And I think we don't do enough thinking or talking of in medicine.
I love it. It's fantastic. All right, big takeaways. Be a leader, but train yourself how to be a leader. Take time to do the things now that you know are going to benefit you in the future, and actually listen to your physical needs and your physical processing in addition to all of our cerebral needs and processing. I love it. It was great to have you on. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule in order to chat with us. It was wonderful getting to hear a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much.
And everyone else, we'll talk to you next time on the next episode of the Women's Wisdom Podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this podcast from the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. AAEM is a nonprofit professional association of over 8,000 emergency physicians dedicated to board certification and democratic group practice. For more information about AAEM, visit our website at www.aaem.org.